So hello guys, welcome again to the channel. So we have another deck tech here, which we got from MTG Goldfish, since the Brothers Wars already out with its full spoiler, and it's probably the peerless weekend here now scheduled, unfortunately, in our local game store because of, again, with the slight delays, again with the logistics. We had to stick again with the schedule for the next week. For anyway, we'll go with the standard deck tech with this. We call it the ramp test, maybe because, of course, the version aren't final yet because of the several changes that would be affecting the build once one of the new cards have been realized that that's really some potentials for the deck. So anyway, just start discussing this. As the name suggests, it's like a mono green, basically ramping up all the creatures in the deck. We have 17 creatures at our disposal that can basically go around with what our main strategy is. There's also some of the cards, saga cards from Dominaria, World Spell, Murder Treaty, and new cards, Awaken the Woods, Mythic Sorcery card, Bushback, and 2 Portal to Correction. So now we just start with our creature choices. We have 2 copies of Iron Claw Crusher, so it's a 7 to cast 4/6 Artifact Creature Worm, but has a prototype of 4 to cast 2/5. Whenever Iron Claw Crusher attacks, target attack creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn where X its power. So it's like basically becomes a 4/5 on its own, and also in the late game, if we were able to cast it for 7, and it's become very powerful attack. But I'm not pretty sure why this was included. Basically, you might have some of your attacking creatures becomes a threat because of its power pump, but basically it's still more on the offensive side, and maybe it goes with the curve of the deck to go with starting with our mini mana dudes and then going up till our late game hard cast spells. Now we also have Llanowar Speakers. This just has 3 copies in the deck. This from Dominaria United has the ability of 1/3 of adding 1 mana of any color. You can also have your lands become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste until end of turn. Till the hand activate only sorcery. So the bonus here is that it will not only ramp up your mana, but also in the late game becomes a source of a threat of having your extra lands becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token. So 3 copies of this in the deck. Next, we also have the mythic card Rootwile Amalgam. It is another prototype creature, artifact creature golem. Its abilities go with a 5 in prototype for 1 in green, but it has this ability wherein you may pay 5, that is a 3 generic and green sacrifice Rootwile Amalgam. You create a X colorless golem artifact creature token where X is 3 times its power. It gain haste until end of turn and activate only as a sorcery. So basically, this is good a late game for a hard cast of a 5/5, but also be able to produce a copy of itself where the X is times 3 of its power. It basically becomes a 15/15 creature artifact creature golem with haste. The sad news is that it can only activate it as sorcery, so any spot removals at instance would not really have a benefit of this to sacrifice to that instant ability of spot removal instead. So still a good mythic to ramp and to good mana dump in the late game, as the deck suggests, is to go into ramp up with your big creatures and pound your opponents with them. Anyway, Rust Goliath. It is a common card with again 10 to cast 10/10, Restoration Trample, and prototype of 5 or 3/5. So basically, what it does is that's basically a good towering golem that can block flyers at the same time becomes a threat with a trample ability. So I think this is just an option for the deck, as I've noticed that if you check here, this is the world spell that makes those prototype creatures very effective, because you'll just put them out into the permanent from your hand to the battlefield without paying this mana cost. So that wins with the prototype creatures, so that means they are your options in having to cast them in the hard cast way or just use the world spell to cheat them out in the battlefield. So again, another recognized card in most of the green decks mana build is the Titan of Industry, wherein it will just go with a 7 to cast 7/7 with these various abilities that are very beneficial to your build. So it's just 3 copies. I'm not pretty sure why it's only 3, because of the way that you can really cast it out by early as possible, as I think as early as turn 5, if given your mana ramp in the deck. but still I think this is considered as a test build, so we can consider at its disposal if if you would only have 3 in the main. Now for our another ramp source, which is also a good attacker in the late game, is Topiary Stomper. This becomes a 3/3/4/4 Vigilance. That's 3 mana. When enters battlefield, search library for a basic land card. So just basic forest and go to battlefield tap. It gets you another ramp in the third turn, but also the drawback is that it can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. With this deck, however, you can just basically ramp it up, play all the lands up till you get to 7 lands, and then just attack with the Stomper. So 4 copies of those. Next, we go with our sorcery. These are the new cards that we consider because of this interesting mythic green that can awaken the woods by creating X green forest dryad land creature tokens. Though they are affected by so many sickness, they can basically a good mana ramp early on. You can pay it for 2, pay it for 3, and for the more mana ramp again, you get a bunch of 1/1 forest dryad land creature tokens that can basically produce more of your green source to ramp up your deck. So 4 copies of this card, and then we also have 4 copies of Bushwhack. It is sorcery for 1, search library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put in your hand and shuffle. The creature you control fights the creature you don't control. So it's also a good fight card, especially with your biggest Stompers and your Titans. And then early on, if you need the mana fix, you can just basically pay for 1 and look for a forest to put it in your hand. So for the enchantments, again, world spells are considering the Saga ability. To look of the sub 7 cards, you reveal an non-Saga permanent card and put in your hand, and then you may able to cheat those non-Saga permanents up to 2 copies. I mean 2 cards that you can play it from your hand to the battlefield. And then the good is that it can 7 to cast is not really a good bad mana cost because of the Warrior's Ramp source in the deck. So basically you just ramp to 7, cast a world spell, look at the top 7 cards, or you can just read ahead if needed in your setup. Now, only one of the relevant target here is the new card again, Portal to Phyrexia. It is a 9 to cast artifact, but it has this ability that each opponent sacrifices 2 creatures as it enters the battlefield. So the beginning of your upkeep, you may put target creature card from a graveyard into the battlefield under your control. Then if it is becomes a Phyrexian, so becomes an army of Mishra, probably of the Phyrexian lords, in addition to its other types. But the good thing is that we put those creatures that are sacrificed by our opponents, or they may have died in the previous battle or in the previous turns, you may then get those cards and put it to the battlefield under your call. So that's basically a freebie of a free creature during your upkeep. So 2 copies of this. You can basically have your world spell, search for this card from the top cards, or if you ever have this in your hand, and there you go with the hard cast of 9, or use the world spell to cheat it out on the battlefield. So last but not the least of our enchantment saga, I have not yet discussed this. This is also another ramp card for your deck with your Seed Treaty. You will search library for a basic land card, put in the battlefield tap. The bonus is also the read ahead mechanic. You can create 1/1 green Sapruling creature token, and the domain is that target creature you control gets +X engage trample on the turn for X to number of basic land types. This one would not really work in our deck because we are going with monocolor. But the good thing is that we can basically search for a forest to ramp and then create a 1/1 Sapruling token that may be used later on to chump blocks any of the threats if you are still bothering to ramp your mana in your early turns. So I think this is still a test deck by its say, but I think the card choices were pretty much in synergy with what the deck aims to achieve in this build. So to make sure that you have only Forest and Bosidio Endures, but I think you can also have some non-basics such as Mishra's Factory to go with the Mishra's Foundry to go with some extra mana lands that can attack, since your monocolor would really need those extra green mana. And also you have Awake the Woods to produce those, and no mana fix of course. I think this is a good deck to try out in the next standard with Brothers War in Arena and MTGO. If you ever get to play this one, I think I would suggest this list. You can just check out also the sideboard from MTG Goldfish user submitted decks if you're going to play for the best of 3 version in Arena, of course, and also in MTGO. So that's about it for this deck tech ramp test, or just we call it the mono green ramp deck for standard Brothers War. And thank you for checking this video. Until the next time, and see you guys.